students. So we'll solve the questions from NCERT exercise for the chapter System of Particles. Give the location of the center of mass of a sphere, cylinder, ring, and a cube, each of uniform mass density. Does the center of mass of a body necessarily lie inside the body? Okay, so for this question, the main thing here is they are all uniform mass density objects. Okay, so all objects are having the same mass density, which means for a cube, for a ring, for a cylinder, for a sphere, whatever is their geometric center will be the center of mass. Okay, so the first one is a sphere. The geometric center of the sphere is the center itself. So the center of mass will be the geometric center. And the second one is cylinder. Okay, so when you have a cylinder, the axis of symmetry, this is the axis of symmetry. So the center of the axis of symmetry is the geometric center. So once again, center of mass will be at the center here. And the third one is a ring. Okay, so when you have a ring, the geometric center of the ring is here. Now you can see here that in these two cases, you had the center of mass inside the object. Okay, the center of mass was inside the object, but in a ring, the center of mass lies outside the object. Okay, so it is not compulsory that center of mass should lie inside the body. So for this case, for the case of a ring, the center of mass lies outside the body. So this is the center of mass. And the last one is a cube. So even if we consider the cube to be a hollow cube or a solid cube, whatever it is, so the center of mass will be the center of the two diagonals. So the face diagonals, or you can just say that the center of the cube is the center of the mass. Okay, that's all. The second question is, in the HCl molecule, the separation between the nuclei of two atoms is about 1.27 angstrom. Find the approximate location of the center of mass of the molecule, given that chlorine atom is about 35.5 times as massive as a hydrogen atom and nearly all the mass of the atom is concentrated in its nucleus. So we will consider a hydrogen atom and a chlorine atom. All right, and it is assumed that both the center of mass of both the atoms is concentrated in its nucleus. So we can consider these two to be point masses. Okay, and the distance between these two is 1.27 angstrom. All right, and if you consider this to be the x-axis, so this is hydrogen and this is chlorine. So mass of chlorine atom is equal to 35.5 times the mass of hydrogen atom. So this thing you need to note down. Okay, and this is a distance of separation. So center of mass might be somewhere in between these two atoms, right? So let us consider this point to be the center of mass, and the distance from the origin or the beginning of the x-axis, let it be x. Okay, so this remaining distance will be 1.27 angstrom minus x. All right, so based on this, we will apply the center of mass formula and we will calculate where the center of mass is. So the center of mass formula is R center of mass. So in this case, since it is only one dimensional, we will write x center of mass is equal to m1x1 plus m2x2 divided by m1 plus m2. So here let 1 be hydrogen and let 2 be chlorine. Okay, so just to substitute here, so mass of hydrogen mh into x1. What is x1? x1 is at the origin, so it is equal to 0 plus mcl. mcl is 35.5 times of hydrogen's mass, so we will write 35.5 mh into x2. Where is x2? x2 is at this point, so that is equal to 1.27 angstrom. Okay, divided by m1 plus m2. So what is m1 here? m1 is mh and m2 is 35.5 mh. So your answer will be, so this entire thing will become equal to 0. So 35.5 mh into 1.27 angstrom, 35.5 into 1.27 angstrom divided by 36.5 mh. So mh gets cancelled and then you calculate this. So after calculating, you get the answer as x center of mass is equal to 1.235 angstrom. All right, so this length is equal to 1.235. X is equal to 1.235 angstrom. Okay. So this will be your answer. Let's move on to the third question. A child sits stationary at one end of a long trolley, moving uniformly with a speed v on a smooth horizontal floor. So let us imagine a trolley, and there is a child on this trolley, and this entire thing is moving with v velocity, v speed, on a smooth horizontal floor. If the child gets up, okay, and runs about on the trolley in any manner, so this child is running about in the trolley in any manner, what is the speed of the center of mass of the trolley plus child system? Okay, so this entire system, let us say the center of mass is somewhere here, okay, and this child is moving in and around in the trolley. So you should understand one thing: when the child is moving, the child and trolley is a system. Okay, so whatever happens between the child and trolley are all internal forces. Okay, they are all internal forces, and all the internal forces, they add up to 0. Okay, so net internal force in any system is always equal to 0. So in that case, if the net force acting, and externally no force is acting on this, okay, externally no force is acting on the system, which means that the total force acting on the system is 0. Hence there won't be any acceleration. If there is no acceleration, the speed will remain same, it won't vary. So the speed of the trolley will not change. So what is the speed of the center of mass of the trolley? It is the same v itself. That's all. Okay, I hope you understood this question. The fourth question, 7.4, show that the area of the triangle contained between the vectors a vector and b vector is 1/2 of the magnitude of a vector cross b vector. So two things we must consider here. We have to prove that the area of the triangle and the magnitude of a cross b are equal. Okay, so we have two things, LHS and RHS, right? Let us consider this triangle, and this side is, let us say, a vector, and this is b vector. So in order to find out the area of the triangle, you know very well, it is equal to half into base into height. Alright, half into base into height. So in order to find out the height of this triangle, so let this be angle theta. Okay, the angle between the two vectors is equal to theta. So here, if you take sine theta, what will I get? Sine theta is equal to opposite divided by hypotenuse. So in this triangle, this angle is 90 degree. So hypotenuse will be b vector. So I can take that the opposite side. So this is the opposite side. So in that case, height, that is the opposite side, h is equal to b vector into sine theta. So here I can take modulus of b vector because I need the length alone. Okay. So this opposite side is equal to b sine theta. This is how I will be writing. And half into, what is the base? Base is the modulus of a into height. What is the height? B vector into sine theta. So this is the area of the triangle. Now what do we have here? It is right in the right hand side. We need a vector cross b vector and the magnitude of it. Okay. So what will be the magnitude of a cross b? First let us say what is a cross b. So a cross b will be modulus of a, modulus of b, sine theta into n cap. What is n cap here? N is the direction of the vector, which is the product of a vector cross b vector. Okay. So here if you take magnitude of a vector cross b, you will be getting modulus of a, modulus of b and sine theta. So n cap is a unit vector, so its magnitude is 1. So that's it. Left hand side and right hand side we have got, and we have to prove that the area of the triangle contained between a vector and b vector is 1/2 of the magnitude of a cross b. So we have proved that. So magnitude of a cross b into 1/2 is equal to area of triangle. So hence proved. So this is your answer. The next question is similar to the fourth one. Show that a vector dot b vector cross c vector is equal in magnitude to the volume of the parallelepiped formed on the three vectors a vector, b vector and c vector. So for this, let us consider three vectors, a vector, b vector and c vector respectively, and we need to confirm that this is equal to the volume of the parallelepiped. So how are we supposed to do it? So let us first consider this and expand this. So this will be equal to modulus of a vector dot or into modulus of b vector cross c vector into cos theta. Now this theta is nothing but b cross c. and A, the angle between B cross C and A. So any vector which is a cross product of B and C will be perpendicular to B and C, the plane containing B and C, right? So this vector can be considered to be the perpendicular vector or the product or the direction of B cross C. So the angle made by that and A is equal to theta. So that's why we will be writing A vector B cross C into cos theta. Now this itself is clearly explaining that this can be rewritten as C, B cross C modulus into modulus of A into cos theta. So what is magnitude of B cross C? Magnitude of B cross C is nothing but area of this parallelogram. Okay, so in the previous sum we did half of magnitude of B cross C is area of triangle. So just B cross C will be equal to area of that parallelogram multiplied by A cos theta. So this length is nothing but A vector modulus into cos theta. So this angle is the height, this length is the height and this is the area. So we know very well volume is nothing but area into height. So that is why this has been proved. So this is the area of the parallelogram and this is the height of the parallelepiped. That's it. The next question, find the components along x, y, z axis of the angular momentum L of a particle whose position vector is r with components x, y and z and momentum p vector with components px, py and pz. Show that if the particle moves only in the xy plane, the angular momentum has only a z component. So let us first complete up to this and then we will move on to the second part of the question. So here they have given that the position vector r vector is given by the components x, y and z. So x into I cap plus y into j cap plus z into k cap. So this is the position vector of a particle. And the momentum vector is given by, what is momentum? Momentum is basically mass into velocity. So that is along the px direction, along the py direction, okay, and along the pz. So the three parameters are given and they are asking us to find out the x, y and z axis components, okay, of L vector. Now what is L? What is angular momentum? L equal to, it is equal to r vector cross p vector. So basically we need to find out the cross product and whatever is the component of I will be the x component, component of j will be y component, component of k will be z component. So let us continue with that. So L vector is equal to, in order to take the vector product, we will take the determinant x, y, z. Since r is written first, we will write x, y, z component first and then px, py and pz. So you have to take the value of the determinant. So you can choose any row or any column, it's your wish, but I'll be choosing this. So I cap into y into pz minus z into py minus j cap into x into pz minus z into px plus k cap into x into py minus y into px. Okay, so you would have noted that I have taken a minus sign instead of for j. That is because the position of the particle of the point in that particular determinant will be negative. So that is a place value of the determinant in that position. Okay, right. So here the x component of angular momentum, that is nothing but Lx is equal to y into pz minus z into py, and then the y component of L will be Ly is equal to minus x pz plus z px. So I can rewrite this as z px minus x pz. Okay, and the z component of L vector will be equal to Lz, which is x py minus y px. So this is the answer. Now they had asked a second part in this question. Show that if the particle moves only in the xy plane, the angular momentum has only z component. So if the particle is moving in the xy plane, then the particle will have only px and py, isn't it? Pz will be equal to 0. Okay, and since the particle cannot be present in the z axis because it is only on the xy plane, so z position is also equal to 0. So if pz is equal to 0 and z is equal to 0, which that means that the x component and y component, this has z component here and z multiplied here, this has z here and pz here, so these two will become equal to 0 and only z component of the angular momentum will be available. Otherwise also you can look at this equation. Okay, so r cross p, so if r cross p is only along the xy, then the product of that will be along which direction? It will be along the z direction alone. Okay, so this is the case when the particle is moving only in the xy plane. I hope you have understood this. So see, for the second part, let me just write a small note here. So if particle is moving in xy plane, that means pz is equal to 0 and z is also equal to 0. So this implies only Lz will be present. Okay, the remaining Lx and Ly will be equal to 0. That's it. Two particles each of mass m and speed v travel in opposite directions along the parallel lines separated by a distance d. Show that the angular momentum vector of two particle system is same whatever be the point about which the angular momentum is taken. So for this, what we need to do is we will first draw an axis, x-axis and y-axis, and consider two particles. Let us say m1 is going downwards and m2 is going upwards. Alright, now both of these particles are having the same mass. So let us say this particle 1, this is particle 2. Particle 1 is going with minus v velocity because it is going in the negative y direction, and particle 2 is going with plus v velocity. Okay, and the distance of this particle from the origin is equal to x, and the distance of the second particle from the origin is equal to x plus d because this length is equal to d. Alright, so here what is L1 vector? L1 is the angular momentum of the first particle. So when the particle is on the position x, its angular momentum will be r1 vector cross p1 vector. Okay, so r1 is nothing but x into I cap cross, what is p1? P1 is minus mass into velocity into j cap. Okay, so this will be equal to minus mvx into I vector cross j vector. What is I cross j? I cross j is nothing but k. Okay, so we will have the L1 vector here. Same way, L2 vector will be equal to R2 vector cross P2 vector, and that is equal to x plus d into I cap cross mv into j cap. So that will be equal to x plus d into mv, again I vector cross j vector. So I cross j is equal to k, and this is mvx plus mvd into k cap. So when combining both the sides, so the total angular momentum will be L1 vector plus L2 vector, and that is equal to mv minus mvx plus mvd, and k cap can be taken common out. So these two will get cancelled and we will be getting mvd into k cap. That means your angular momentum of these two bodies is independent of x. It is independent of x or y or z. Okay, that means this particle has the same angular momentum no matter whatever point we are choosing. Okay, so you can be at any point on the x-axis or y-axis or z-axis. The angular momentum of this particle will remain same because it is independent of x, y and z components. That's it. A non-uniform bar of weight W is suspended at rest by two strings of negligible weight as shown in the figure. The angles made by the string with the vertical are 36.9 degrees and 53.1 degrees respectively. The bar is 2 meters long. Calculate the distance d of the center of gravity of the bar from its left end. See, center of mass and center of gravity can be considered to be the same points if the object is in a uniform gravitational field. So in this diagram, they have given non-uniform bar, but the gravitational field is uniform. So the center of mass and center of gravity will be the same. Okay, so here what we will do, we will write the tension T1 and T1 cos, we will split it into T1 cos theta, so that angle 36.9 let us consider to be theta. So since they are alternate angles, you will write it theta there. So that component will be T1 cos theta, and this component, horizontal component this side opposite to the theta, will be T1 sin theta. Okay, then next we will draw for T2. Okay, so where is T2? T2 is along this line, and the angle made by that and the vertical will be 53.1, which will be represented as phi. Okay, so that angle will be T2 cos phi, and the horizontal component here will be equal to T2 sin phi, right? So after this, what we will do is, we will see what are the equilibriums present here. So this object is in rotational equilibrium as well as translational equilibrium. Okay, and so when we are going to consider about the translational equilibrium, so there are two types of translatory motion that can happen. That is, one is along the y-axis, the other is along the x-axis. So in the x-axis, if the object is in equilibrium, so I can write T1 sin theta is equal to T2 sin phi. So this will be first equation. And then in vertical equilibrium, so the weight of the object is acting in the vertical direction, downward direction, and T1 cos theta plus T2 cos phi are acting along the positive y direction. So let this be equation number 2. Now the total torque acting on this object is also 0, because the object is in equilibrium. So the torque acting is 0. That means the clockwise torque and the anti-clockwise torque, they both are equal. Okay, so the clockwise torque is equal to anti-clockwise torque. Anti-clockwise torque. So at which point will the torque be acting? So the torque will be acting at the point of center. Okay, at the center of mass, which is at a distance of d from one end. Okay, so this side we have T1 cos theta, okay, multiplied by d. So T1 cos theta multiplied by this distance, this is one torque. Okay, so this is going to rotate the object in the clockwise direction. So this should be equal to T2 cos phi into 2 meter minus d. So the length of the rod is 2 meter. So you will be writing 2 minus d. So these are the three equations. Okay, so based on these three equations, we will be solving and finding our answers for d. Okay, so d is the thing that we need to calculate. So consider equation number 3 and equation number 1. So we can easily divide equation 3 and 1. Okay, so what will we get? So we have T1 cos theta into d is equal to T2 cos phi into 2 minus d divided by T1 sin theta, and here you have divided by T2 sin phi. Okay, so just we will cancel this T1 T2. So we have d cot theta is equal to 2 minus d into cot phi. Okay, so enter phi and theta values. So theta is equal to 36.9 degree and phi is equal to 53.1 degree. 0.1 degree. So d into cot 36.9 degree is equal to 2 minus d into cot 53.1 degree. So when you substitute the values and simplify, you will be getting d is equal to 0.72 meter, or we can also write d is equal to 72 centimeter. Okay, so actually here you can see cot 36.9 is equal to 4 by 3. Okay, and 2 minus d into, so all these values you can know, right? Because there is a famous triangle but having the angles 53 degrees and 37 degrees. So that is having the side 5, 4 and 3. So based on this you can easily calculate. So cot 65 cot theta is hypotenuse by cot theta is adjacent by opposite, right? So that is equal to 4 by 3. And same thing, cot 53 will be equal to adjacent 3 by 4. Am I right? 3 by 4. So that's it. You can simplify and you will be getting the answer 0.72 meter. Next question. A car weighs 1800 kilogram. The distance between its front and back axles is 1.8 meter. Its center of gravity is 1.05 meter behind the front axle. Determine the force exerted by the level ground on each front wheel and each back wheel. Okay, so let us consider a car, and it is given that, let us say, this is the front side and this is the back side. The distance between the front and back side is given as 1.8 meter. All right, and the center of gravity, okay, is the point where the weight is acting, because we are considering the center of gravity and center of mass is at the same point. Okay, so in that case, the normal reaction on the front is NF and the normal reaction on the back is NB. All right, so this entire car is in translation as well as rotational equilibrium. Okay, translational equilibrium as well as rotational equilibrium. So what will happen? So when it is in translational equilibrium, what are the forces acting here? So NF plus NB is equal to the weight of the object. Okay, so NF is the front normal reaction, NB is the back normal reaction. It will be equal to M into G. What is the mass? 1800 into 9.8. So in that case, NF, I can write, is equal to 1800 into 9.8 minus NB. Plus you can also write NB is equal to minus NF. Okay, so let us keep this as equation number 1. Now this object is also in rotational equilibrium. So what will happen? NF into, what is this distance? This is equal to 1.05 meter. Okay, so NF into 1.05 is equal to NB into 1.8 minus 1.05. Let this be equation number 2. Substitute this in this equation number 2. Okay, so you will be getting 1.05 into NF is equal to 0.75 into this 1800 into 9.8 will be 17640 minus NF. Okay, simplifying this, you will be getting NF is equal to 7350 Newton. Okay, all calculation part you can do it by yourself. So, and if you substitute this in this equation, you will be getting NB is equal to 10290 Newton. Now this is the total normal reaction in the front and total normal reaction in the back. But since there are two wheels each, so this in each wheel, okay, on each wheel it will be equal to, each wheel will be equal to NF by 2. Okay, so 7350 divided by 2, which is giving me 3675 Newton. Okay, and on the back, each back wheel, it will be equal to NB by 2, which is 10290 divided by 2, and that is 5145 Newton. Okay, so this is the answer. Question number 7.10. Find the moment of inertia of a sphere about a tangent to the sphere, given the moment of inertia of the sphere about any of its diameters to be 2 by 5 mr square, where m is the mass of the sphere and r is the radius of the sphere. So basically we have to use parallel axis theorem. So in this we have a sphere and an axis whose moment of inertia is known. So that is passing through the center of mass and it is crossing its diameter. Okay, so in a sphere, all the lines which are passing the center of mass will obviously be the diameter. So I is equal to 2 by 5 mr square. Now they are asking at a tangent. Okay, so a tangent is a line touching the curved surface. So here this length will be equal to capital R. So according to your parallel axis theorem, the I dash will be equal to I plus md square, where d is the distance between the two axes, the known and the unknown axis. So that will be equal to 2 by 5 mr square plus m into capital R square. So that is nothing but 7 by 5 mr square. That's all. So this will be the moment of inertia of an axis about the tangent to the sphere. Okay. Then the next question is, given the moment of inertia of a disc. So you have a disc of mass m and radius r about any of its diameters to be mr square by 4. So this is equal to mr square by 4. Now remember, this is a sphere. Okay, so I'll just draw some girth to it, and this is a disk. Okay, so this is that's a sphere, and this is a disk, and this is a solid sphere, not hollow sphere. Okay, so yeah, about its diameter is equal to mr square by 4. So find the moment of inertia about an axis normal to the disk and passing through a point on its edge. So we have to find out across a diameter which is passing through the edge of the disk, and it is perpendicular to the disk. Okay, so how will we calculate this? So we know that we have to use two theorems here. So first of all, we need to calculate the moment of inertia about an axis passing through the center and perpendicular. Okay, so we will use the perpendicular axis theorem. So we know very well ID plus ID. Okay, so we will consider two diameters which are perpendicular to each other. So both of them will have the same moment of inertia, mr square by 4. So ID plus ID is equal to I center of mass. Okay, which is normal to the plane of the disk. Normal to plane of disk, right? So in that case, 2 times of ID is equal to ICM, and ID is nothing but mr square divided by 4. So therefore we can say the center of moment of inertia passing through the center and perpendicular to the plane will be mr square by 2. Now you apply your parallel axis theorem. So you want to find out the moment of inertia passing through the edge, right? So let us say I dash is equal to I center of mass plus m d square. Okay, so what is d in this case? So this into mark and this into mark. The distance between them is equal to capital R. Therefore, you have mr square by 2 plus mr square, that is equal to 3 mr square by 2. Okay, so this is the moment of inertia of the disk about an axis passing through the edge and perpendicular to the plane of the disk. That's all.